There are moments in history when an entire people suddenly realize they've been living in a matrix. Not a technological matrix like in the movies, but a psychological one. A belief that they can't do anything for themselves. On March 15, 2023, 20 million people in Burkina Faso woke up. And when a people awakens, nothing can stop them. This isn't just a story about agriculture or economics. This is the story of breaking the mental chains that the world has placed on Africa's neck for centuries. This is the story of the day 20 million people collectively said, "Enough," and decided to rewrite their own destiny. To understand why what's happening in Burkina Faso is so revolutionary, we must first understand the machine that has worked for decades to keep Africa in a state of dependency. This machine isn't a secret conspiracy, but a sophisticated system designed to convince a people they cannot be self-sufficient. Psychological control was the first step, convincing a nation it couldn't stand on its own. For 60 years, Burkina Faso was bombarded with the message that it needed aid to survive, that its land was poor, that its people lacked skills, that its culture was backward. This was repeated so often that they believed it was true. Economic control is seen in the raw materials versus finished products system. Burkina Faso was encouraged to export raw cotton for $2 a kilogram, only to import cotton t-shirts for $20 a piece. They export raw gold and then import jewelry at 100 times the price. This isn't an accident. This is by design. Intellectual control is manifested through brain drain and a dependency mindset. Burkina Faso's best minds were given scholarships to study in the West, then convinced that their home country had no opportunities. They stayed behind to work for foreign companies, contributing their intelligence to the development of already wealthy nations. Cultural control was the devaluing of traditional knowledge and methods. Burkinabe farmers had known how to cultivate in arid conditions for thousands of years, but they were told that only modern Western agriculture was effective. Traditional medicine was dismissed as primitive. Local governance structures were replaced by a Western-style democracy that didn't fit the cultural context. Previously, Burkina Faso imported 65% of its food, depended on international aid for 40% of its budget, and saw 80% of its top students emigrate after graduation. The collective psychology was, we cannot live without them. Government agencies were infected with a donor mindset. Every decision had to be approved by the World Bank or the IMF. It was the perfect self-fulfilling prophecy. Believing in failure created failure. But there are moments in history when all these layers of deception are peeled back. When a people sees the truth of its own power. For Burkina Faso, that moment came when Ibrahim Traoré stood before 20 million people and said, "We have everything we need to prosper. The only problem is that we have forgotten it." And at the center of this awakening stood a man who had long understood that true power doesn't come from the outside. Ibrahim Traoré is not just a leader. He is a philosopher of action, an architect of consciousness, a catalyst for transformation. To understand him, we must understand the philosophy he represents. Born in 1988, Traoré grew up in a Burkina Faso, where every aspiration pointed outward. But instead of dreaming of escape, he dreamed of transformation. Instead of studying abroad, he studied geology at a local university to understand his country's natural resources. His philosophy of self-reliance stems from a core belief. Every people has within them everything they need to prosper. This isn't wishful thinking. It's a scientific observation. Burkina Faso has fertile land, abundant water resources, tremendous human capital, and cultural wisdom accumulated over thousands of years. The problem wasn't a lack of resources, but a lack of belief in those resources. The practical application of this philosophy is how he translates belief into policy. Instead of asking for aid to import food, he invests in local agriculture. Instead of hiring foreign consultants, he empowers local experts. Instead of copying Western models, he adapts traditional systems with modern techniques. His historical foundation connects to Thomas Sankara and the philosophy of African liberation. Sankara had proven that self-reliance was possible. During his short 4-year rule, he transformed Burkina Faso from aid-dependent to food self-sufficient. Traoré studied not just Sankara's policies, but also his failures. He understood that a revolution isn't sustainable if it's top-down. It must come from the consciousness of the people. Modern adaptation is applying ancient wisdom to contemporary challenges. Traditional farming techniques are upgraded with modern irrigation. Local governance structures are strengthened with digital communication. Cultural values are preserved within modern institutional frameworks. The psychology of a revolutionary includes pattern recognition. He sees patterns that others miss. While others see poverty and dependency, he sees the systematic suppression of potential. Systems thinking helps him understand that everything is connected. Agriculture connects to education, education to culture, culture to economics. Long-term vision makes him think in generations, not electoral cycles. He plans for his children's children. The courage of conviction makes him willing to confront powerful interests, knowing that transformation will threaten those who profit from the current system. Ibrahim Traoré doesn't just have a vision, he has a systematic methodology. Phase 1 is consciousness raising, changing the narrative about Burkina Faso's capabilities, connecting with cultural pride and historical memory, creating new symbols and a new language of possibility. He organized festivals celebrating local innovations, competitions for the best traditional farming techniques, and media campaigns highlighting the success stories of ordinary citizens. Phase 2 is institutional transformation, restructuring the government to serve the people, not donors. Realigning priorities from dependency to self-reliance. Building new partnerships based on equality. Ministries were refocused from aid coordination to production support. Foreign advisors were replaced with local experts. International agreements were renegotiated to benefit Burkina Faso, rather than just foreign partners. Phase 3 is the economic revolution, focusing on production capabilities, not consumption, developing local value chains, keeping wealth circulating within the country. Instead of exporting raw cotton, Burkina Faso now processes it into textiles. Instead of importing manufactured goods, local factories produce what people need. Instead of sending profits overseas, money stays local and creates multiplier effects. Phase 4 is a cultural renaissance, reviving traditional knowledge systems, blending ancient wisdom with modern techniques, creating a new identity as producers and innovators. Traditional healers collaborate with modern doctors. Ancient farming wisdom integrates with contemporary science. Local languages become the official languages of business and government. But a philosophy means nothing without action. And Ibrahim Traoré's actions created a movement whose scale not even he could have anticipated. A revolution is never about one person. It's about the moment when one person's consciousness spreads and becomes the consciousness of many. In Burkina Faso, this spread happened with astonishing speed and scale. The psychological contagion began with initial skepticism. The people were doubtful at first. They had heard too many promises before. They had been disappointed too many times. But Traoré didn't just talk. He acted. He started with small demonstrations of what was possible. The first believers were the farmers tired of dependency, the teachers frustrated with an irrelevant curriculum, the entrepreneurs constrained by a lack of local opportunities. They saw in Traoré's actions an echo of their own dreams. The tipping point came when these early adopters started showing results. When farmers using traditional seeds achieved higher yields than those using imported ones. When students learning local skills found jobs in the growing local economy. When entrepreneurs focusing on local markets proved more profitable than those chasing foreign contracts. Mass conversion happened when the majority of the population bought into the vision. This didn't happen overnight. It was a process of education, demonstration, and gradual trust building. But when it happened, the momentum became unstoppable. In the agricultural sector, farmers began experimenting with the traditional seeds their grandparents used. The formation of local agricultural cooperatives helped share knowledge and resources. Knowledge-sharing networks emerged organically, with elder farmers teaching younger ones the techniques that had been lost. Innovation and adaptation at the grassroots level created solutions that no foreign expert could have designed. Aissatou Ouedraogo, a 52-year-old farmer in the Centre-Nord province, shared, "My grandmother used to say this land could feed the world if we knew how to treat it properly. I forgot that when I started using foreign fertilizers and seeds. But when Ibrahim Traoré encouraged us to return to traditional methods, I remembered. Now I grow enough not just for my family, but to sell at the market." In the education sector, teachers incorporated local knowledge into the curriculum. Students developed pride in their local culture and capabilities. New educational priorities focused on practical skills plus cultural identity. The brain drain slowed as opportunities appeared locally. Instead of dreaming of studying abroad, students dreamed of improving their communities. Burema Sawadogo, a 34-year-old teacher in Ouagadougou, explains, "I used to teach children that success meant leaving Burkina Faso. Now I teach them that success means building Burkina Faso. The curriculum now includes traditional crafts, local history, practical agriculture. The students are excited about learning because they see its relevance to their lives." In the economic sector, entrepreneurs started looking for local solutions. Investment shifted from foreign partnerships to local capabilities. New business models based on local value creation emerged. An economic nationalism without xenophobia developed. A preference for local products not because of a hatred of foreigners, but because of a love for the community. Changing the system from within shows that a revolution isn't just about changing hearts and minds. It's also about changing systems and structures. Ibrahim Traoré understood that sustainable change needs institutional backing. Government restructuring included ministries refocused from aid coordination to production support, budget reallocation from prestige projects to productive infrastructure. New metrics of success focused on self-reliance indicators rather than donor satisfaction, and a decision-making process that prioritizes long-term sustainability. The economic policy revolution implemented import substitution policies with realistic timelines, support for local industries and value-added processing, financial systems designed to serve local production, and trade policies that protect emerging industries. The cultural policy transformation brought official recognition of traditional knowledge systems, integration of local languages into official communication, cultural events celebrating self-reliance and innovation, and media policies promoting positive African narratives. A true revolution doesn't respect borders. The ideas of Ibrahim Traoré and the success of Burkina Faso began to resonate across Africa and beyond. Regional inspiration saw leaders from other African countries studying the model, youth movements across Africa adopting similar philosophies, regional cooperation based on mutual strength rather than mutual weakness, and a revival of Pan-African consciousness with practical applications. Global attention forced international development organizations to reconsider their approaches, academic institutions to study the phenomenon, media coverage to shift from skeptical to curious to admiring, and global South countries to take note of an alternative development path. Perhaps most importantly, Ibrahim Traoré contributed to an intellectual revolution, a new development theory based on endogenous capabilities, a challenge to neo-colonial assumptions about African potential, a demonstration of an alternative path to modernization, and a proof of concept for self-reliant development. But a revolution is truly measured by the transformation it creates in the lives of real people. Numbers and policies only tell part of the story. The real transformation happens at the level of individual human beings, how they think about themselves, how they relate to the world, how they envision the future. The psychological transformation from dependency to agency was dramatic. Before, the mindset was, we need someone to help us. After, the mindset is, we can solve this ourselves. Evidence includes farmers designing their own irrigation systems, teachers creating their own educational materials, and entrepreneurs developing their own distribution networks. The shift from a scarcity to an abundance mindset was also profound. Before, there aren't enough resources to do anything. After, we have everything we need, we just need to organize it properly. Evidence includes communities building schools from local materials, hospitals using traditional medicine alongside modern medicine, and businesses thriving using local supply chains. The move from individual to collective thinking represents a fundamental shift. Before, I have to look out for myself. After, we succeed or fail together. Evidence includes farmers sharing seeds freely, entrepreneurs collaborating rather than competing, and families supporting each other's education and business ventures. Mamadou Traoré, a 45-year-old farmer, reflects, "I used to farm just to get by. Now I farm to feed my community and to export. The difference isn't the land or the seeds, it's the mindset. I realized I could be a producer, not just a survivor. When I changed the way I thought about farming, everything changed." Fatimata Kabore, a 38-year-old teacher, shares, "My students used to dream of escaping Burkina Faso. They thought success meant getting a visa to Europe or America. Now they dream of building it. They see possibility instead of limitation. They design projects to improve their villages. That's all education should be, showing people what's possible." Usman Sankara, a 29-year-old entrepreneur, explains, "I used to think that to be successful, I needed foreign partners, foreign investment, foreign validation. I realize now that real success comes from building something the community owns and controls. My business now employs 50 local people. The profit isn't just money, it's dignity. When people control their own economic destiny, everything is different." Individual transformation, when it happens at scale, creates societal transformation. Burkina Faso is experiencing fundamental shifts at every level of society. The economic ecosystem shows production networks with local businesses linking to each other, innovation clusters with the spontaneous emergence of solution-focused groups, financial circulation with money staying local longer and creating multiplier effects, and value creation with a focus on adding value rather than just extracting resources. Social structures evolve as community organizations become stronger and more effective. Intergenerational knowledge transfer sees elders sharing wisdom and youth sharing energy. Gender dynamics shift with women taking leadership roles in new economic activities, and youth engagement grows with young people seeing a future at home rather than abroad. A cultural renaissance brings a language revival with local languages gaining prestige and practical use. Traditional knowledge with ancient techniques being validated and modernized. Artistic expression with new songs, stories, and art celebrating self-reliance. And a spiritual renewal with the connection between cultural identity and economic success. Institutional evolution includes government responsiveness, with public servants becoming more accountable to citizens. Educational relevance with schools teaching skills needed for local development. Healthcare innovation with traditional medicine integrated into modern healthcare, and a legal framework with laws supporting local enterprise and innovation. When individual and societal transformations combine, the result is a national transformation, a fundamental change in the character of an entire country. Economic indicators show food security moving from import dependence to export capability, job creation in productive sectors, an improved trade balance with reduced imports and increased value-added exports, and financial independence with less reliance on foreign aid and loans. Social indicators include improved education outcomes with relevant skills and cultural pride, better health metrics from improved nutrition and healthcare access, stronger social cohesion with a greater sense of national unity and purpose, and shifting migration patterns with youth staying and the diaspora returning. International standing shows regional leadership with other countries studying the Burkina Faso model. Global recognition and respect for its successful self-reliant development, partnership terms negotiated from a position of strength rather than weakness, and growing soft power through cultural and intellectual influence. Perhaps most important are the immeasurable changes. National confidence with a belief in collective capability, a future orientation with planning for generations rather than just surviving today, creative energy with innovation and experimentation at every level, and moral authority from standing up for the principles of dignity and self-determination. But this transformation doesn't just have meaning for Burkina Faso. It is reshaping an entire continent and beyond. A true revolution can never be contained within borders. Ideas have a tendency to spread, especially when those ideas are backed by concrete results. The Burkina Faso revolution is creating ripples across the world. An African Renaissance shows a continental awakening with other African leaders questioning dependency models, youth movements across Pan-Africa inspired by the possibility of self-reliance, economic integration with African countries trading more with each other, and cultural pride with a renewed appreciation for African knowledge systems. The president of Mali has publicly stated, "Burkina Faso has shown us the path. We no longer need to ask permission from Paris or Washington to develop our countries." Ghana's youth movement has adopted the slogan, "If Burkina Faso can, we can." South Africa's universities have started teaching courses on the Burkina Faso model of development. Global South Inspiration provides a development alternative with proof that self-reliant development is possible. South-South cooperation with new partnerships based on mutual respect, knowledge sharing with traditional solutions being recognized globally, and political models with alternatives to Western-imposed governance structures. An academic revolution is bringing a new development theory based on endogenous capabilities, research priorities that focus on local knowledge and solutions, educational curricula that include African success stories, and publishing platforms that give African perspectives a global stage. A media transformation shows a narrative shift from Africa as a problem to Africa as a source of solutions. Documentary interest with filmmakers documenting the transformation, social media where African voices control their own stories, and cultural products like music, literature, and art that celebrate self-reliance. A revolution's true measure is its impact on future generations. Children growing up in Burkina Faso today will have a completely different worldview from their parents. The next generation has an educational foundation where children learn they are creators, not just consumers. Skill development with practical abilities to solve local problems. A cultural grounding with a strong sense of identity and capability. And a global perspective with confident engagement with the world as equals. Institutional sustainability includes policy frameworks with systems designed to maintain self-reliance, economic structures with built-in protections against redependency, cultural preservation with mechanisms to maintain revolutionary values, and a leadership pipeline with a new generation of leaders committed to this path. Regional integration brings economic blocs with African countries cooperating as equal partners, knowledge networks sharing innovations and best practices, cultural exchange celebrating diversity while building unity, and political coordination with common positions in international forums. If the Burkina Faso model spreads successfully, a global transformation will include a new development paradigm that completely rethinks how countries develop. More equitable international relations and global power structures, economic systems with trade based on mutual benefit rather than exploitation, and a cultural renaissance with respect for all civilizations and knowledge systems. Ibrahim Traoré and the Burkinabe Revolution teach us universal principles applicable everywhere. The power of belief shows that transformation begins in the mind. When people believe in their capabilities, those capabilities expand. This is true for individuals, communities, and nations. The importance of self-reliance proves that true strength comes from developing your own capabilities rather than depending on others. This doesn't mean isolation, but engagement from a position of strength. The value of a cultural foundation demonstrates that innovation builds best on tradition. Rather than abandoning their heritage, successful societies integrate traditional wisdom with modern techniques. The necessity of courage proves that change requires courage. The courage to challenge existing systems, to try new approaches, and to believe in possibilities others dismiss. Watching Burkina Faso transform raises a question. What revolution is possible in your own life, your own community? At the individual level, what dependencies can you eliminate? What capabilities can you develop? How can you contribute to, rather than just consume from, your community? At the community level, what local problems could be solved with local resources? What traditional knowledge is being undervalued? How can community members support each other's growth? At the national level, what false limitations has your country accepted? What resources are being exported raw that could be processed locally? How can citizens take more responsibility for national development? Ibrahim Traoré has shown us that a revolution doesn't need violence, only a clear vision of what's possible, a commitment to practical action, a belief in people's capabilities, a willingness to challenge assumptions, and persistence in the face of skepticism. Burkina Faso has proved that transformation is possible. The question is, who will be next? Which community, which country, which individual will embrace this revolutionary mindset and create their own transformation? The revolution is waiting. The question is, are you ready to join it? The chains of mental slavery can only be broken by consciousness. The consciousness of one person can awaken the consciousness of a nation. And the consciousness of a nation can awaken the consciousness of the entire world. This is what Ibrahim Traoré and the 20 million people of Burkina Faso have proved. The question now is, when will you wake up?